Welcome back to Yield Today with Dallin Candland. I'm here with Ken Attard, and he's a mindset coach and just helps people to grow using their mindset and take full advantage of it. So I'm excited to have him on. Thanks for coming, Ken.
My absolute pleasure. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. So let's just dive into can you think of any time in your life, maybe like your formative years, where mindset really just came in clutch for you? It really was like maybe you're like awakened maybe to this?
Well, how I got into it was somewhat of an awakening. So about it's probably over 20 years ago now. Um, I got involved in network marketing, multi-level marketing, and part and parcel with network marketing was personal development. And I started to listen to speakers. I started to read books. I started to dive somewhat more deeply into it. I found myself in front of people on a weekly basis, so I felt I wanted to be prepared as much as possible, and I started to learn. I was literally learning, and what blew me away the most was was I started to say, but how come they don't teach us any of this stuff in school? And that's actually what really got me going, because I said, this would be so amazing if youngsters could learn this stuff, if there could be, and when I say young, it could be like at a very young age. Like you mentioned pivotal moments in my life where I could look way back when I was about, I think I was about 10 or 11, and I really wish I knew at the time what I know now when it comes to mindset. When there was a very pivotal moment in my life. I was an avid hockey player. To make that really clear, ice hockey for those in Europe, but because I know in North America you say hockey, it's automatic ice hockey. And it was a very pivotal moment in my life where I was at the top at in one instant, and then all of a sudden I was just brought down. And I was, like I said, I was 11, 12, and it was a devastating moment for me. Yet if I knew what I know today with regards, when those moments do come, I would have known how to deal with it a lot better at that point in time. And this is looking back like many years. I mean, we're talking a long time ago. So those were definite moments. I mean, even the mindset, which was unconscious what I was doing when I made the move. So just to give people a bit of a background as well, like I said, I was born in Canada. I was born in Toronto, Canada, and I lived there till I was 14. I now find myself in Malta, in the Mediterranean. So a small island in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea. So like I said, I went from playing ice hockey to an island that does not have ice. So that was a huge adapting, pivoting, what I call nowadays change. And at the time, I didn't I just went through the motions really at the time up to a certain extent, but there were certain changes that came upon me then, when it came to schooling, when it came to which were so different. Now I can see how with the proper mindset, with a mindset nowadays, I like to call it, I think I think people are, up to a certain extent, are somewhat sort of not fed up of, but tired of listening to a positive mindset and a growth mindset. And I get it; they're all wonderful, they're all perfect. Nowadays, I just look at it as a good feeling mindset. So I'm very much about people tapping into something that helps them to make them feel good, and by doing that, by purposely thinking in a certain way and practicing a good feeling, let's call it frequency, automatically the things around you begin to change. So there, I could point out several moments in my life where the pivotal moments, even in business, I've been an entrepreneur for over 20 years plus, been through ups, been through downs, been through a time where I almost lost everything. And without a doubt, at that point in time, I had already been delving, and that definitely helped me to shift things very, very quickly. It's and it's all about you really have to look at yourself. You really do have to look at yourself. So even if I go back to the time when I almost lost everything, I had to look at myself and say, okay, what was my part in this? What part did I play in this? Because I was playing a part without a doubt. I can't point fingers at anybody and expect not to look at myself. Were there circumstances that were happening? Absolutely. Yet now, from a mindset standpoint of view, I understand that the way we're thinking has an effect on the emotions that we're creating, which is going to have an effect on the actions and behaviors, which is ultimately going to have an effect on the results and the experiences that you are having in your life. So if I go right back to my thinking, I can, if I want to change any results, any experiences, I can go back to and look at how am I thinking. And those thoughts are tied in with your beliefs. Because a belief is nothing but a thought that you have thought over and over and over and over, or someone has potentially also installed that belief in you as well at a younger age, without a doubt, as well, because our parents are teaching us, and they're teaching us what they know, with the most instances with the greatest of intentions. Yet that's what they know, and this is what is crucial when it comes to mindset as well, and your beliefs. Is just because you believe something right now doesn't necessarily mean it is the truth. It's just your belief, and you can shift that belief, and understanding how to shift those beliefs can make a significant difference for you.
Yeah, I think being able to do that is very important, especially when you feel like you're I don't know, you like maybe you feel like you're washed up or something big happened, and now we're like, okay, well, this was all I needed. I am absolutely done with this, you know. It's interesting because it sort of makes me think of the book The Dip by Seth Godin, and I haven't even read the book yet. I've talked about it multiple times, and I think this is a sign I need to actually read the silly thing now. But he talks about, like, there's a point when to quit and when not to quit. And I can think of times in my life where there's been times with two different things, and a lot of it went back to that good feeling, more or less, was like, do I feel like I've learned a lot from this? Has this accomplished what I wanted it to accomplish? And with one of the things, it was like, yeah, this kind of already did what I wanted it to do. So, yeah, I probably can let this go. And I've probably been holding on to this too long, actually. And when you have those conversations with yourself, you can have these beautiful moments like, oh, wow, I'm really glad I noticed this, instead of keeping this going for another year or two, because this is going to let me have more energy for that other thing that needs to keep going.
Absolutely, 100%. And I know that for certain for myself as well. At one point in time, I was in retail, and the first retail shop that I had opened, I actually held on to it probably 2 years longer than I needed to hold on to it. I was just like, okay, I can make this work. I can make this work. And, it becomes your baby. It becomes part of your identity. What are people going to think if I close this shop, and now they're going to think I'm a failure, and they're going to think all of these things, and they're just not going to think those things, because they're the center of their own universe, and they're not going to be thinking about you at all. But I held on to it probably for a good 2 years too long, and again, I have no regrets about it. Absolutely no regrets about it. I learned a lot from that situation, that circumstance, and like you're saying, sometimes there is a time to. I don't even call it, quitting. You can call it quitting, I guess. I think it's a matter of surrendering and say, you know what, this is the time. A lot of people will put a bad frame on quitting, in the sense that you gave up. It's not a matter of giving up. It's just a matter of surrendering and saying, okay, it's time to move on from here, because there's bigger and better things to move on to. It's as simple as that, right? I mean, there's bigger and better things to move on to, and I can attest to that as well. That things flipped very quickly and were far better than I could have ever imagined.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful when you let yourself maybe play around with some of that idea, like maybe this is kind of done, and this is where the beautiful part of conversation and being able to talk with you comes into play, because I do have this YouTube channel that I kept going for like 2 years longer than I had really thought about, and been planning out when it was going to end, and then just sort of like kept going and holding on to it. And and it is interesting because a lot of it was the audience was growing up, and then there were some people that couldn't let go, and I couldn't let go either. So was finally able to let go. It's like we all were able to sort of take a step back, and I still keep in touch with some of those people, and just in other ways, because they really did make an impact on me. But then there's others that, you know, were kind of there for the ride, and then they got off. And then there's others who go with you to the next thing. So yeah, it's just humbling when you're able to give yourself that grace. Because I do look back, you know, in the moment, and even a year or so after, it's like, what in the world? Like, I'm so upset with myself that I held on to it this long. And now I'm like, well, I did learn a lot about this. And when a similar thing happens, I'll be able to just be like, okay, well, you know, exactly what you said. Like, surrender, it's done. I'm thankful. That's it.
Yeah, and you'll use that experience moving forward, right? You'll use that experience moving forward, and you have the potential of using that experience for other people as well. So there could be someone who's in the same predicament or in a similar predicament. They're not sure what to do, and you might be, with the experience that you gain from that, you potentially are in a position where you can actually give them some very sound advice. So that's why you needed to learn that lesson. It's as simple as that. I mean, something that one of the philosophy, if you want to call it a philosophy, one of the quotes I live by very much, which comes from Esther Hicks, Abraham Hicks. I don't know if anybody follows here. Yet she says, you know, everything is always working out for you. So if you live by that and you recognize that everything is always working out for you. And that includes when it appears not to be. Because that's the key to it, is when things appear not to be working out for you, if you can remember that it actually is working out for you, things will shift very quickly again. Because you do not have the full picture. You know, you're not omnipotent. You're not omnipresent. You do not have the full picture. You're seeing one perspective, from the perspective of a human being, your perspective, according to your beliefs, according to what you can see with your eyes, what you can hear with your ears. You're not seeing the whole picture. And again, it's very easy. Most people can look back on their lives and say, oh, I'm really glad that happened, even though it seemed like it was really bad at the time, but now I can see that that was a blessing that happened. It's as simple as that. So rather than wait, 5 years down the road so that you can look back and say, oh, that was a blessing, recognize that immediately, and it's going to make things a lot easier for you so that you can actually carry on. And this is where I see success, true success, is when although you're going through, let's say a challenging time, if you want to call it, you can still go through that joyfully. If you can go through that joyfully, then that to me is true success, because you're in a joyful state throughout your journey. And unfortunately, and this one of my pet peeves nowadays, and when it comes to the message that I want to deliver to, specifically to entrepreneurs, but any individual, but for the most part, we're taught, and some by great teachers, don't get me wrong, and great intention, but we're taught that as an entrepreneur, you're going to struggle. You're taught that as an entrepreneur, you're going to be making sacrifices. You're taught as an entrepreneur that you're going to be suffering. You're taught as an entrepreneur, you're not going to have any time except for your business. So, let your family know that you're not going to have time for them. You're not going to have time for yourself to take care of yourself. We're taught all of these things. And it is so ingrained, it is taught so much, as I was saying before, that most believe it. And because they do believe it, it has, they've been taught that way, it is a truth to them. And it will unfold that way. So my question is this, and my message is this: what if, as an entrepreneur, it could be fun? What if it could be impactful? What if it could be inspirational? Dare I say, what if it could be easy? What if it could be flowing? And you start to shift those beliefs so that begins to materialize. Now, does that mean you're never going to have any challenges? Yes, you're going to have your challenges, and that's where growth is going to happen without a doubt, and you're going to have growth Yet if during that growth and during those challenges you can still have fun, you can still be joyful, it's going to be so much easier. It doesn't have to be the pain that so many people think they have to go through. And not only that, the thing that happens is it becomes a complex equivalency. So what do I mean by that? It becomes that sacrifice, struggle, suffering, lack of time equals success. So if you're not suffering, if you're not sacrificing, if it's really difficult, if it's hard, then that's the only way you can be successful. So if at some point, and this happens to so many entrepreneurs, at some point things start to become a little easier and things are flowing, all of a sudden the entrepreneur, the owner, the business owner is going, just a second, this is a little bit too easy. Why is this too easy? It's supposed to be difficult. It's supposed to be a sacrifice. And all of a sudden they begin to self-sabotage themselves and create stuff, again, to take up more time for them so that it's difficult, and it becomes this vicious circle. It's as simple as that. It's up to you, and this is where mindset comes in. You have all the power is in your hands. You use this purposefully, and you start to create those good feelings, everything around you begins to change.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful because I recently finished watching Incredibles 2 with my brother last night, and they have these like superpowers, these like outward, like clearly, but they're also like arranging their day and living like it and all these other things. And I think a lot of us are we have a lot of really good qualities, but maybe we don't act like we do. We don't act like we can really help people, and so we don't.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got tremendous potential. For me, one thing that is, we were just talking about this before we got on, is, at the core essence of each and every one of us, we're all the same. Like, it's pure love. Like, it's all the same. Every single one of us. I like to call it. We hear about source and the divine and source energy and our true self and our higher self. I like to call it, I coined it, the Oomami Self. And for those of you who are familiar with food, so umami is that flavor. It's when you eat something and it's so good, it's indescribable. In fact, the definition of umami is the essence of deliciousness. So to me, the Oomami Self is the essence of deliciousness of who you truly are. And who you truly are, it's pure love, man. All of us, all are the same. So when we can start to treat people like that as well, and recognize that, this world, for the most part, is all about, standing out and being the best and being on top and making sure that, you're getting your slice of the pie and all this. That's just coming from a place of lack. There's enough for everyone. And when I can look at others that way and say, you know what? You're just like me. I can't be unkind to you. I can't hurt you without hurting myself, because we are one and the same. I can't be kind to you without being kind to myself, because we are one and the same. So many people are lashing out and attacking other people, and all it is a cry for love. It's a cry for love. People are lashing out at other people because they still haven't figured out how to love themselves. Now, you might be saying, how does this tie in with entrepreneurship or entrepreneurs and all? You know what? It ties in because your life is as a business person, for instance, or an entrepreneur, your personal life is intertwined in there. And how you are acting in your personal life is going to be reflected in your business life as well, and vice versa. How are you treating people? Are you treating them with kindness? Are you treating them with compassion? Are you treating them with fairness? Are you, if you have employees, are you the example for your employees? Or, there's all kinds of things that come into it. And again, it's all about that good feeling, right? Because you have a lot of people who are going about, and showing that they're successful and all that, which is all wonderful and that. Yet, there's a great question. I don't know if you've ever watched the movie The Peaceful Warrior. Phenomenal. Love this movie. There's a great book as well. Same book, Peaceful Warrior by Dan Millman. Fantastic. And there's a lot of wisdom in there. And there's like there's a young teenager in there. He sort of like meets a guy he calls Socrates. Just this old guy that appears to him, but he starts to give him a lot of advice and whatever. And in the very beginning, when they're in their interaction, he's the young guy is an athlete. He's a top elite athlete. He's training for the Olympics. He's a grade A student, and he actually says to him, "You know what? I got grade A students. I'm qualifying for the Olympics. I only sleep alone if I want to." So he's boasting and all that, and Socrates just looks at him. And the only thing he asks him is this: "Are you happy?" And he just like, he doesn't know how to answer that. Because obviously he knows he's not. So what a great question to ask you. Look, am I happy? Like, am I truly happy with how I'm living my life? How I'm running my business? Does it give me pleasure in the morning, or is it this constant sacrifice, struggling, and then I'm lashing out at other people? There's a lot of stuff that starts to come in there. But when you really start to learn about how you have an element of control there, in the sense of how you think and what your beliefs are. And yes, you know what? I'm going to let you off the hook, because some of those beliefs, like I said, came as a youngster. Between the ages of 0 and 7, there were a lot of beliefs that were put in there. Again, teachers, parents, friends, people you hang around with, all that stuff, that potential has been put up. Yet now you might be able to recognize some of those unresourceful ones and say, you know what? I don't need this anymore. I don't need to believe that. I love the phrase sometimes when people come up with like, well, life just got in the way. No, life didn't get in the way. I get it and I understand, and things come up for all of us. Yet life didn't get in the way. What got in the way is how you reacted to those circumstances. How you let me change that a tiny bit. What matters is whether or not you reacted or you responded. Because if you reacted, you just acted in the same way you've always acted whenever you were in a situation like that. If you responded, you may have taken the time to take a step back and think and say, okay, how could I handle this differently so as to get a different outcome? But so many people are lost in this fast-paced, let's go world that they've created, because it's not the world that's a fast pace. It's just people are thinking that that's what they got to do to get to move forward. And in actual fact, one of the first things I have to tell people, especially entrepreneurs, is, dude, you got to stop. Or woman, you got to stop. You got to stop. And they're like, what do you mean stop? No, I've been told take action. I got to take action. Not only do you need to take action, you need to take massive action. Right? And I get it. And I respect that. And without a doubt, there is a place for that action. But what I've discovered is that there's a tremendous difference between taking action and taking inspired action. And inspired action can only come by actually slowing down. And think about it. If you make a decision to slow down, to stop, is that not an action in of itself? So you're still taking action. You're taking the action to stop, so that you can actually slow down enough so that you can receive inspiration. Because all the solutions, all the ideas, they're all floating around. You just have to tap into a frequency that allows that to come in. Make sense?
Yeah. Well, I think the questions that we ask ourselves can really be roadmaps, can be like super, super, super powerful to take us to other places. I mean, one that I've used sometimes, like, how is this the greatest thing that could have ever happened to me? And your brain will come up with reasons, how, you missing this goal in a soccer game, or you not making the basketball team, or you not getting this job or whatever. Like, your brain is that powerful, will come up with answers.
Absolutely. If you're going to ask it for questions, it's going to look for the solutions. So it's very important to ask yourself valuable questions, not questions that are going to keep you stuck.
Yeah.
If you're going to keep asking yourself, why didn't I do this better? Like, why am I such an idiot? Why am I not successful? Well, if you're going to ask yourself why you're not successful, your brain's going to look for all the reasons why you haven't been successful yet, rather than saying, okay, so what could I do differently to get a different result? And your brain's going to look for a different way of doing things. You're precisely right there. You're bang on.
Yeah, so when it comes to your coaching then, Ken, with helping people to upgrade their mindset, is a lot of it just like helping go to those questions that are a little more like have more little exploration behind them, a little more open-ended? Is a lot of it that?
Yeah, well, part of it is that. Yet I like to take them through. I have what I call the Ark Method, which I use, and I intertwine it. It's not like like this step and then this step. It's all intertwined. But the Ark Method, and I chose Ark simply because an arc, for those of you who might not be aware, is one of the strongest foundations in architecture. And the Ark Method is a very strong foundation when it comes to mindset. And basically, it's made up of awareness. Everything starts from awareness. What you don't know, you don't know. Adapting, which is all about change, and accepting that change is pretty well the only constant that exists, because change will happen. It's about alignment. We spoke a tiny bit about that, but it's about tapping into an energy that is far bigger than you, and understanding when you tap into that energy, everything lies there, the Oomami Self. It's about applying, which is the inspired action part, and it's about allowing, which is a real big one as well, which is trust. Trusting yourself, trusting that everything is always working out for you. So I base a lot on those 5 pillars of the Ark Method when I'm working with people. And then, a lot of people have individual challenges that they're going through. They can vary from one, but for the most part, many are, like I said, for me, it's about finding true freedom. So, like I said, I work mostly with entrepreneurs, and so many entrepreneurs have lost that true freedom. They started out their business looking for that freedom. They wanted freedom, whether that was financial freedom, time freedom, and to do the things that, yet in actual fact, they don't have that freedom, because now they find themselves going down a rabbit hole where they're finding it really difficult to get out, and they don't have enough time for themselves. Some of them could be, potentially not in the financial situation that they would like to be, and they're wondering why. Their relationships are getting screwed up because they're not spending enough time in their relationships, whether intimate, whether just friends, social, and they're not taking care of themselves. So from a health aspect, a lot of times they're not taking care of themselves. And that was a huge lesson for me many, many years ago, when I went from, being in the gym, 5-6 days a week, to when my daughter was born. I remember when my daughter was born, for the first 12 years, I did nothing. Because I said, you know what? My daughter's my priority. My family's my priority. I'm doing this for my... And then I realized, I'm going to be totally useless to my family if I'm dead. I said, whoa, something's got to change here, right? So all these things start to come into it, and play. And yeah, sometimes there are open-ended questions, and the client will actually have the answer. They'll know the answer, but a lot of times they'll know what the answers are. It's just that sometimes they're scared to actually, admit that this is the answer, because now this is going to require adapting. This is going to require change, and what they've gotten used to is pretty comfortable sometimes. They've gotten used to that comfort. So even when they're, let me use in quotation marks, suffering, they're doing something, they know it's not working, but they keep on doing it. And they keep on doing it simply because somewhere along the line, there's secondary gain. They're benefiting something out of it. They just haven't recognized what they're benefiting from it yet. And when we can recognize that secondary gain, then we can start to make some changes as well.
Yeah, I've really I've been spending a lot of time dissecting what I've learned in the last year, and a lot of it I've come to the conclusion was I was doing a lot of denying and avoiding, and that led to frustration and fear, and led to all of these other things, and it led to, jobs falling through, et cetera, et cetera. And now I'm in this part of accepting, trusting, and calm, and it's a completely different world. It really is. When you're just I am just going to accept what this is. I'm not going to get upset about it. I'm not going to get frustrated with it. I've had times in my life where I kind of more or less chose to trust and accept, and you learn a lot more from that place, and you also are able to maintain some dominance too. If we think of our brain as like this, like, impenetrable castle, and we're the only ones that can let it stuff in, you know, when we're very careful about what we're going to let in, and we just kind of trust, we're like, some stuff just isn't supposed to come in, then we're able to hold a lot of our peace that way.
Absolutely, absolutely, and essentially what you're doing is also you're holding on to. So many people will lash out, for instance, and then people will lash back. So what people are doing essentially is giving their power away. Whereas when you can actually take a moment and you can actually keep yourself calm, for instance, in a situation that, to a certain extent, you probably don't have much control over. I mean, it is what it is. It happened. Okay, so and also, the frequency of a problem is not the same frequency as the solution. So you've got to get yourself to a point where you're actually elevating yourself to the frequency of the solution, so you can allow to receive that solution, an idea, or whatever it may be. Ironically, many people get their solutions, their ideas, in the shower, simply because they slow down enough. They slow down enough to stop their thinking, not keep on going and going and going, as we were talking before, and stopping, and just allowed space for that to receive that inspiration, that solution, that idea. It's ironic that you have to be having your shower. What if how much more powerful would it be if you purposefully learned to do that on a daily basis? And this is the whole message, is that, as we were speaking before, like, people, for the most part, individuals still have not comprehended. You're talking about, you were watching the movie yesterday, still have not comprehended that mindset is your superpower. Each and every one of us, it's our superpower. Like, if you knew that for certain, like, wouldn't you give it the importance that is due to it? Wouldn't you dedicate a portion of your every day to learning a bit more, to tapping into that divine energy, to whatever it is, to help you move forward and understand that you can purposefully design the business, the lifestyle, the relationships that you want, the health that you want. You can design all of that. And to me, that is very, very, very powerful.
I agree. Yeah, there's living by default and there's living by design, and I've done both. Living by design is a lot better.
Most of us have. Like, and again, to let people off the hook, like, I mean, if this is the first time that you are listening to something like this, like, I'm letting you off the hook. Like, if you didn't know, you didn't know. But now you know. So, take it further. Go somewhere. Do a bit of research. I mean, I say this all the time. Like you have more information available to you in one day than my grandparents could have had available to them in a lifetime. It's available to you in one day. You could have that all. Yet people still, I got to get to the famous, I got to get to the grind. I got to be grinding. I got to be hustling. I got to hustle. I got that hustle. I got to... it doesn't have to be that way. It really doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah. So can you think of a time from a client that you're able to help them just to kind of subscribe to the slow building up to speed instead of grinding like crazy and wearing themselves out, or any story like that?
Yeah, I have a particular client who is a business owner. She's a business owner, and she has a business which she runs with her husband, and she was going full speed ahead, like constantly full speed ahead. Like I'm saying, so there's always more to do. There's always more to do, and trying to keep up with this and keeping up with that, and we started working together, and we started implementing and reminding her, listen, slow down a bit, take a bit of time in the morning before you start your day. Get your, bit of appreciation, and then taking time for yourself as well. And she started to implement this. And amazingly, she started to realize that the work was still getting done. And then she started to trust a little more, because there was a bit of trust issues going on as well, where fitting that, someone else can't do it as well as I can do it. I have to be, I have to be on top of it and all this. She started to, delegate a little more, allow that to happen, and then lo and behold, all of a sudden, she was finding that she had time for herself. She would literally make decisions to say, you know what, this afternoon I'm taking it off, right? And on top of that, I also knew, because we had discussed as well, I knew that she also wanted to start a family. Yet that she was at a point where, it hadn't happened. Amazingly as well, as she began to let go, trust, slow down, she's had a baby. So it's amazing. It's amazing stuff. Absolutely. And again, it gets done. And ultimately, to me, again, the goal isn't, and this is really important. I think this is really important for anybody in business, entrepreneurs, anybody who's, moving forward, maybe aspiring as well, to understand it's not about arriving at the destination that you want to arrive at. The goal setting is wonderful, and that's great. You can set your goals, and but again, it's about not holding on too tight to them, because things change. This is that. What's most important, and as much of a cliche as this is, but it's the truth. That's why it's such a cliche, and that's why it has to be mentioned. To me, is that it's about enjoying your journey. It's as simple as that. It's about enjoying the journey, because something that I had heard as well, and it's phenomenal, is that you can't expect to have a joyful outcome, the goals that you want to achieve. You can't expect to have a joyful outcome with an unjoyful journey. It's never going to happen. And as you are living this unjoyful journey, because you're determined to, because you're saying, when I get to the final outcome, then I would have made it, then I can be happy, and then I can have all the things that I want to have. If you're unjoyful in the process, you're just pushing that thing further and further away. Just pushing it further and further away. So it's not about having that and then being happy. It's about being happy now, and then you'll have it. It's completely the opposite of what most people learn. And I mean, what's the sense of going through your whole life to attain this goal that you want to attain, and in between you're miserable? And not only are you miserable, you're probably making the people around you miserable too. The people around you don't want to be around you. Friends no longer are around. Intimate relationships seem to be dwindling. It starts to encompass your whole life. So take time to feel good. And then things start to change.
Yeah, that's really good. There's that Bible verse that comes to mind, what does it profit a man if he gains the world but loses his soul? It's like what if you were doing all that stuff and then all of a sudden
Can I just put something in there about that? I don't think you can ever lose your soul. I think you can pinch yourself away, but that essence, and this is the cool part as well, that essence, that soul, that each and every one of us is the same. There's always a kindling light there. And you can always come back to that kindling light and just bring that out so that it shines brighter.
Yeah, I believe that too, and I speak carefully here because I don't understand all this stuff.
I can't. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. No, it's perfect. What you said was perfect. I just like to throw that in just to make sure that people don't think that they could ever lose it, because you can't.
It's good, because there have been times where I've felt I've more or less lost an opportunity or lost a thing, and but you can always learn and do things differently and change and
absolutely always
change it up.
Yeah, absolutely, always. That's what it's all about, man. And you're gonna have. I mean, if I were to go through a list of all the changes I had in my life, there are big ones. There are big ones. Even me speaking here today, that was a big one. That was a big one that happened a little while ago, and I just made a decision. And a lot of times it's just about making a decision, and then the rest starts to fall into place as well.
That's beautiful. Yeah, well, you've definitely given us a wealth of wisdom here, and I'm sure this will be one I personally go back to and listen to a bunch of times, because it's like, what would Ken say about this? And you'll say like, and you should definitely do this in this way. And I'm like, oh, okay, thank you, Ken.
But listen, listen. I appreciate that. Yet I'm going to make this really clear as well. If someone's listening here and they think that what I've said, if there's any piece of what I've said is garbage, feel free to throw it away. Okay? Because there isn't one way to success. There isn't one way to make your way, okay? And if you ever have a teacher that tells you this is the only way, I would start to say, start running away. Right? If someone says that, because there isn't just one way, man. I'm conveying what I've learned from my experience and what works for me and I believe can work for others. Yet that doesn't mean that you're not going to find an even better way.
Yeah. Yeah, it says in The Magic of Thinking Big that there's as many like ways to make something happen as there are like people, basically. Like there's that many like really, really good ways to make things happen.
Unlimited options available to you at any given time.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you throwing that little disclaimer out there, because I agree. You know, because like with advice too, it's like,
yeah,
take whatever you want from it. You don't have to take any of it.
What resonates with you, man, take it. Run with it. Like I'm saying, what resonates. What doesn't resonate with you? I mean, I do the same thing. Like I'm constantly learning and listening and I go, oh, that's a really interesting piece. I like that. And then, 5 minutes later, they're saying something and I'm like, oh, I'm not quite sure about that. Right? So I don't need to take it. Like I can listen to it and I can maybe, contemplate a bit on it and say, yeah, or go, no, I see it differently. And that's okay. That's okay. That's how we come up with new ideas, new ways of doing things. Absolutely. So it's absolutely vital that even with anybody that like I'm working with or teaching is like, man, I don't have every single answer that, I don't. I still figure things out too. I still got my life that I'm figuring components of my life out from, right? So it's just that nowadays what's significantly different is that more than anything, we were talking before as well, like I don't beat myself up too much. I can be hard on myself sometimes and go, oh man, you know, but at the same time, then I go, you know what, everything's always working out anyways. It's always working out. So let's see, what can I learn here? Look at how can I move forward? Let's take this thing to the next level. That's it.
It's beautiful. Yeah, and life is always changing too, so we might as well change with it. So I mean,
and you have an impact on what's changing. This is what's is very important for people to understand, is the way you are thinking is having an effect on your outside world. Understand that everything that's happening outside of you is a reflection of what's happening inside of you. So once you start to change things on the inside, the outside has to change. It has to conform. It has to be aligned with what's going on inside. So this is so now all of a sudden, when you start to change things on the inside, all of a sudden, the right type of people start to show up. The right circumstances begin to show up. Right? The right relationships begin to show up. All this stuff starts to, and this is what inspiration is, right? And this is why it saves you a ton of time. Because now you're not, as a salesperson, you're not running after 1,000 people to get one sale. No, because you're tapping into something so magnificent that you only have to speak to a handful of people and you've made a couple of sales. Because you're aligning yourself with something much bigger than you, and then outside, again, has to align with you, has to align with that.
That's beautiful. Yeah, well, we could definitely go on. We'll have you on again for sure. I try to not keep these super long, but thank you so much for coming on. And how can we get in contact with you, Ken, and learn more about what you do?
Sure, absolutely. I'd say the easiest way for someone to get in contact with me would be just by email, ken@mindsetmalta.com. They could also join my Mindset Malta Facebook page, and they can get in touch with me there as well through Messenger or anything like that. The last thing that I'd like to potentially offer anybody who's listening is, if they'd like a free masterclass, they can go to adaptandpivotnow.com, So that's adapt, the word and pivotnow.com. And there's a free masterclass there as well if they'd like to. And if someone is really interested about making some changes, right now I actually have a program that is called the Mindset Choice, the choice that changes everything. And this is a free program. So if someone, but they have to get in touch with me either through email, and then we'll have a chat if they're really interested, so that I can give them access to this free program, which is pretty cool. There's some really interesting stuff in there.
That's awesome. You're just giving out tons of value with that. And I have heard good things about that one training you did. So I'm going to have to dive into some of that stuff for sure, because it's interesting to me.
Cool. Excellent. Very good. Love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on, Ken. Do you have any last words of wisdom or anything else?
Last words of wisdom, the way I like to finish most of my videos is remember to laugh a lot more, especially when you can laugh at yourself.
That's beautiful. Yeah, if you can laugh at yourself and you can laugh with yourself, I mean, you're doing something right. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ken. We'll talk again soon.
Thanks for the opportunity. Yep.
Yep.